hectic week over in League One as Birmingham City edge back to the promised land. That is, of course, the second bloody tier. Who will join them in the automatic spots? We'll take a look at that and much more. Crazy week. League One next. That's right, folks. Back once again with another prediction video. Today is all about matchday number 42. That's right, in League One with the race to the second tier. Hot on the cards, of course. Who will be alongside Birmingham City in the driving seat at the end of this coming match week? We'll take a look at that and much more in a second. If you knew where you've been, hit the old subscribe. You want stop shop for League One, Blackpool Rovers, World Football. We're going to all hear under one roof. Yeah, of course, Birmingham City edging ever closer. They're on 92 points with currently Wrexham got a bit of a gap between themselves and their nearest and dearest Wycombe. But that could all change this week in a bit of a double match week, sort of. It's a bit of a catch-up week. We're not really focusing too much on the catch-up week, but at the end of it, we could have an outright top two in League One. We'll take a look at all of it in a second. Of course, people shout to the members, people shout to the patrons, you know who you are. So what we're going to do now, though, is revisit the last round of games, which did take place this weekend. And then, of course, we're going to look forward to this coming weekend's action with, of course, maybe a little bit of chit-chatter about the games coming at you in the middle of the week. So sit tight, hold on, let's get into it. And have a look what went down, of course. This was it. Reading with a massive 1-0 win over Wycombe to move themselves within touching distance of those top six spots. Wrexham with a 3-0 win over Burton as predicted. Birmingham with a 6-2 win over Barnsley. They were down 10 men. They made it a good game of it. Did Barnsley, but 10 men was, of course, the key. Bolton with a 1-0 win over Bristol Rovers. I went with a 2-1 win. Charlton could only draw 2-2 with Lincoln. I went with a 1-0 win. Stockport 2-0 winners on the road against Exeter. I went with a 2-1 win. Huddersfield did beat Mansfield 2-1. I went with a draw. The Orient also fallen to pieces as well. 0-0 in the end over Wigan. Massive win for Northampton Town. 4-0 win over Peterborough. Rotherham also getting a 2-1 win over Blackpool. I went there with the draw. Cambridge 1-0 winners on the road against Shrewsbury in the relegation 6-pointer. And then Stevenage did beat Crawley 3-1. So the table looks like this, my friends. As you see it, it is Birmingham right now. 92 points with Wrexham in second spot with 81. Wycombe got a game in hand to close that gap a little bit, and they need to win that game in hand with Stockport County and Charlton also, casually looking on to maybe see that top two spots. As for the playoffs, Bolton currently reside in that top six spot, but anybody from 8th upwards could be in those top six at the end of this week. We're looking at a lot of catch-up games this week. There's 6 of them. We'll gloss over them here shortly, but I do anticipate this video will be either out after the conclusion of those 6 and maybe the new table at the end of it to reflect that. We'll see. We'll talk about, let's have a look at it in just a second, of course. Before all that, let's bring it back up to date with the prediction leagues. And of course, this is the current state of play. This was, of course, the big points haul over the past few weeks, all into one graphic there. So big winners there. And of course, that has now been calculated into the overall leaderboard. And of course, that is looking like this. As you see it, looking good at the top of the table there. Of course, race for the title still on and still many, many points to be had. So keep on doing your thing, guys. Do your thing. And this is the link right here, right now, if you want to keep on doing your thing. So these are the next round of games that are coming at you this coming weekend. Now, there are 6 games coming at you before that, and we'll talk about that right here, right now. So starting with Bolton against Rotherham. Of course, Rotherham's still looking for a coach. It's over at Bolton, and I do anticipate Bolton to get the W on that one. The bookies also agree with me. Exeter against Wigan. Over at Exeter, that's a tough one. That could go either way, and I'd probably sit on the fence with a 1-1 draw on that one. Meanwhile, Huddersfield will take on Wycombe in a must-win territory for Wycombe if they're going to be in that discussion for the automatics. And I think they'll get it. I think they'll get over the line. Huddersfield were unconvincing, and they've been unconvincing for a little bit of time. It'll be a toughie. I'm going to just go with the 1 goal in that one. Maybe a 2-1 win Wycombe or a 1-0 win for Wycombe on Tuesday night. Meanwhile, Mansfield against Leyton Orient, the 2 has-beens. Both of those guys were knocking on the door for playoffs earlier in the season, but of course their season has kind of petered out a little bit, and so it does smell like probably a 1-0 win Mansfield on that one potentially. Peterborough against Birmingham. Now this one's tricky because Peterborough can be good, decent. Birmingham, of course, flying high, and again it is a dress rehearsal for this coming weekend's action in the EFL Trophy at Wembley. Of course, Peterborough are the champions. Birmingham, of course, the money bags, trying to do a bit of a double with, of course, League One and this title on the line. So dress rehearsal for that is at Peterborough. Birmingham still favoured for the victory on this one, but I'm going to go 2. You know what? I think it'll be a 2-1 Peterborough for this, and then the EFL Trophy will go to Birmingham as they'll do a nice little double at the end of the season. And then Shrewsbury will take on Reading, and I think Reading will get another win. 1-0 win, 2-0 win, something like that, because Shrewsbury under Michael Upton are shit. So let's get into the next round of games, which do take place this coming April the 12th. Now, I will hope to put those score lines at the end of it to change the table to look to make it look legitimate. You know what I mean? Like with those 6 games. But we're focusing on the match number 42 or whatever it is. Wigan up against Wrexham. Ding Dong Classic coming out of the DW. That's right. Bit of a headliner for Ryan Lowe as he's coming in here, sitting 19th right now, 45 points for the season. They're winless. They won the last 4 up against Wrexham under Phil Parkinson, who are second, 81 points. And a win here, you'll probably think Wrexham are destined to be playing Championship football. They're unbeaten in the last 5, and they played Wigan twice since 2023, and they've won both of them. Both of those 2 matches were in Wales. 4-2 winners in the penalty shootout way back in August 2023. That was in the EFL Cup, with the most recent match being a 2-1 win for Wrexham at Wrexham back on 29th of December 2024. However, the DW is the venue. Of course, Wigan coming into this on the back of a 0-0 draw against the Orient, but they haven't scored in the last 2 matches, and they haven't won in a long, long time as well. I think the last victory was a 1-0 win over Cambridge at this very venue. Wrexham, though, on the back of a 3-0 win over Burton. That was over in the racecourse ground just the other day. And again, I think, Wigan are in action this week as well, so double match week for them. Good chance to get some points on the board for Ryan Lowe. But the bookies, they'll go with Wrexham. They're expected to win on this one. I'm going to go with a surprise. I'm going to go with a 2-0 win for Wigan at home. Put a cat amongst the pigeons and cause a right old rat's nest at the race for the top 2. Let's go to Wycombe then. Could be a massive week for them, taking on Stevenage this time around over at Adams Park. Mike Dodd's boys are 3rd in the table, 75 points for the season. Just 1 defeat in the last 4 up against Stevenage and Alex Ravel, 13th for the table, 52 points for the season. Just 1 win though in the last 6 matches. They played 20 times since 2010. 9 wins Wycombe, 8 wins Stevenage. There's been 3 draws between the 2 sides. Last time around over at Wycombe, it was a 1-0 win for Stevenage way back in November 2023. The reverse fixture this season, 3-0 winners it was for Wycombe way back on Boxing Day this campaign. Stevenage though on the back of a big win, 3-1 winners over Crawley. Wycombe though on the back of a 1-0 loss to Reading. They've only scored 1 goal in the last 3 games, have Wycombe. That's concerning time for them at the moment. The odds though for this one, Wycombe are expected to win there at home, and it could be a big week for them. I'm going with a 1-0 win because they're not scoring many goals, and they'll get this one over the line in the end. Next up, the Battle of the Bees. It's Barnsley, it's Bolton. It's coming to at Oakwell. Conor Hoonhane's boys are 12th right now, 54 points for the season. Their season is dwindling. They haven't won the last 7 matches up against Bolton and Stephen Schumacher, who are 6th right now, 66 points for the season. They've won back-to-back matches. They have played Barnsley 31 times since 1993. 7 wins Barnsley, 10 wins Bolton, 14 draws between the 2 sides. Last time around at this very venue, it was in the League One playoffs semi-final way back in May 2024. Bolton came out on top with a 3-1 win. Meanwhile, this season they played at Bolton. It was a 2-1 win for Barnsley way back on Boxing Day. Bolton, though, on the back of that 1-0 win over Bristol Rovers, back-to-back clean sheets for them. Up against Barnsley on the back of that 6-2 thriller over at St Andrews, where they lost in the end to the inevitable champions. Meanwhile, of course, Barnsley on the and Bolton quite even. Stevens on the bookies odds. It could be a draw here, guys. According to the bookies, I've gone with the 2-1 win Barnsley, upsetting the apple cart, and of course getting Conor Hoonhane a big, massive win to kind of stop the rot for Barnsley. Bristol Rovers up against Exeter City, coming at the Memorial Stadium, Memorial Field. Bristol Rovers under Ignell Calderon. They are 20th, 42 points for the season. They've lost 5 on the spin. Up against Exeter, the Gary Caldwell, 1-2, lost 2 and drawn 2 over the last 6. They sit 16th right now with 48 points. They played 25 times since 2003. 7 wins Bristol Rovers, 13 wins Exeter. There's been 5 draws between the 2 sides. Last time around, over at Bristol Rovers in the league at this very venue, was a 1-0 win for Exeter way back in January 2024. Now the reverse fixture, a 3-1 win for Exeter at Exeter. That was St James Park back on Boxing Day this season. Now bonus point, 3-2 winners Exeter over Bristol Rovers. When they last played, it was this season in the EFL Trophy Southern. The visitors came out top with a 3-2 win way back in October. Exeter though on the back of that 2-0 loss to Stockport. Bristol Rovers on the back of that 1-0 loss to Bolton. It's been grim stuff for Ignell Calderon's side. They're expected to lose this game as well. Exeter with the odds expected with the. I'm going with the draw here, sitting on the fence, 1-1. Point in the bag really doesn't do any booster really. Just keeps Bristol Rovers still in that relegation discussion. Now speaking of relegation discussion, Burton Albion need to get back to winning ways and fast. Team GB is down 21st, 39 points for the season, up against Huddersfield under John Worthington. Both sides on identical form. They've got 33% form for them, winning 2 times at the last 6. Huddersfield are 8th right now, 64 points, but they're coming into this on the back of a win. Up against Burton and Team GB, they're coming into this on the back of a defeat, and they played each other 3 times since 2016. There's been 1 win apiece and 1 draw. Now, the last time they played over at this very venue was a 1-0 win for Huddersfield. That was back in December 2016. Meanwhile, this season it was a 1-1 draw way back in December 2024 at the John Smith's McAlpine Stadium. Burton, though, on the back of that 3-0 loss to Wrexham. Huddersfield on the back of that 2-1 win over Mansfield this week. Of course, Huddersfield are in action against Wycombe, potentially to get themselves back in that top 6 discussion, still without a manager. The bookies expected Huddersfield to win this game. Not me, though. I'm going with my boy, Team GB, Gary Bowyer, with a 1-0 win in the end. Surprise, surprise. Cambridge United against Charlton coming at Cambridge. Neil Harris's boys are doing all right, 23rd in the table, 35 points for the season. When I say doing all right, they're unbeaten in the last 4 matches, 42% form for them. Up against Charlton. Under Nathan Jones, they sit 5th right now, 73 points for the season. Just 1 defeat in the last 6. They played 8 times since 2021, 5 wins to Charlton, nothing for Cambridge. There's been 3 draws between the two sides. Last time around, over at this very venue in the league, it was a 1-1 draw way back in April 2024. The reverse fixture. A 2-1 win for Charlton at the Valley on Boxing Day. Now, again, bonus point. They played each other again this season in September. It was a 2-1 for Charlton at Cambridge at the EFL Trophy Southern in September. So make it back-to-back wins for Charlton. They're looking for a 3rd win against Cambridge this season at Cambridge. Cambridge on the back of that 1-0 winner of Shrewsbury, though. They were unbeaten in the last 4 matches. Up against Charlton on the back of that 2-2 draw against Lincoln City. The odds, expect a win for Charlton according to the bookies. I'm going there with a 2-1 win in the end. That's right. Let's go to Crawley then. Up against the Leyton Orient season is over, I think, for Leyton Orient. They're 9th right now. Up with Richie Wellens at the helm. Crawley still in that relegation spot with 22nd spot, 36 points for the season. Now, they played 19 times since 2012, 10 wins Crawley, 8 wins Orient. There's been 1 draw between these two sides. Last time around, of course, over at Crawley, it was a 1-0 win for the Orient back in August 2022. That was in League 2. Now, the reverse fixture this season at Brisbane Road happens back on Boxing Day. It was a 3-0 win for the Orient to give themselves back-to-back wins. They've actually won 4 on the spin against Crawley and haven't conceded a goal against them in those last 4 matches. Speaking of clean sheets, the Orient on the back of a 0-0 draw themselves. Crawley on the back of that 3-1 loss to Stevenage. What are we looking at here? The odds for this one, the Orient expected to get the W. Crawley, not so much. I'm going with a 0-0 draw. Another clean sheet for the Orient as they keep doing their ting. Meanwhile, Lincoln City up against Shrewsbury at Sincil Bank. Michael Scabula's boys are 11th with 54 points for the season. Just 1 defeat in the last 5. Up against Shrewsbury under Michael Appleton right now without a win in the last 11 matches. They're rock bottom and they will be playing League 2 League 2 football next season. It's not confirmed yet, but it's pretty much a certainty. They played 30 times since 2022. That was 2002, 11 wins apiece and 8 draws. Last time around over at this very venue was a 3-0 win for Lincoln back in February 2024. Shrewsbury, though, did pick up the win when they did play each other this season at Shrewsbury. Lincoln, though, on the back of that 2-2 draw away to Charlton. Shrewsbury on the back of that 1-0 loss to Cambridge. And they haven't scored a goal in the last 2. In fact, they've only scored 1 goal in the last 6. It's grim stuff for Shrewsbury at the moment. They're expected to lose this game as well. Lincoln expected to get the win. I've gone with a 2-1 win, but I do have a goal for Shrewsbury, which could be the start of something. We'll see. Northampton Town against Reading then, shall we? Kevin Nolan's boys are 18th with 46 points for the season. They're rocking 50% form for them right now. 1-2 lost to and drawn to over the last 6. However, look at it a different way. Just 1 win in 5 for Northampton Town. Up against Reading under Mike Niall Hunt. They are 7th right now. 65 points for the season. Just 1 defeat in the last 6. Now, they've played 6 times since 2006. 2 wins Northampton, 4 wins Reading. There's been 0 draws between the two sides. Last time around over at this very venue was a 3-1 win for Northampton Town back in October 2023. Now, this season at the Matchday, 4-1 win as it was for Reading way back in December. Reading, though, on the back of that 1-0 win over Wycombe. Northampton Town on the back of that 4-0 away win to Peterborough United. The odds for this one, though, Northampton Town have the edge. They're, of course, favoured for the W. I'm going with a 1-1 draw, point apiece, which keeps Reading in the mix there for those top 6. Speaking of top 6, Stockport County up against Rotherham United coming at you at Edgeley Park. Stockport under David Challoner, just 1 defeat in the last 6. They won 3 on the spin and they sit 4th right now. Maybe trying to gate crash that top 2. Up against Rotherham under Matthew Harmshaw is the coach right now. Back-to-back wins. They sit 14th right now with 51 points for the season. Now, they played 8 times since 2001. 1 win Stockport, 4 wins Rotherham. There's been 3 draws between the two sides. Last time around over at this very venue was a 3-3 thriller way back in January 2011. Now, this season also a 1-1 draw at the New York Stadium back in December. Now, Rotherham on the back of that 2-1 win over Blackpool. Stockport on the back of that 2-0 win over Exeter. Back-to-back clean sheets for them. Just 1 goal conceded in the last 3. The bookies will back Stockport. Of course they will, as do I. 2-0 winners and another clean sheet to boot. And then into the final 2, we have Blackpool. They're going to be taking on, who are they taking on? Taking on Birmingham City. Oh, that game's probably postponed. It's probably postponed, that's right. As will the Mansfield Peterborough one be postponed. That game will probably take place another day. But we'll talk about it anyway. I've got no odds. So it's just all about my gut. Got no odds, got no data. Blackpool gets Birmingham. It might be a bit of a hangover for Birmingham. I'm going to go with a 2-1 win for Stevie Bruce's boys against his old club as well. 2-1 win, Stevie Bruce and Blackpool with the W to give Blackpool a massive boost in their top 6 push. Mansfield Town against Peterborough, also going with a win for Peterborough, who are cooking with gas at the moment. A little bit. I know they have a little bit of a stanker last time around, but end of the season promise for Peterborough, and maybe they'll bounce back from the shock of losing to Birmingham in the league, actually beaten in the cup, you know what I mean. Anyway, so if I'm right, this is what the table will look like at the end of the campaign, or the end of this week, which is of course big week, and of course Birmingham will still be as you were, and of course the race for the playoffs is still hot to bloody trot. Going down, still none the wiser, but Burton closing in on a possible lastminute.com saviour. But we'll see all that, and of course much more when we return. Don't forget, of course, Prediction League is still hot and top bloody trot. Get in amongst that. But until then, subscribe, smash the like, catch you later. Until then, we're done.